Hey, good morning. Welcome to Tuesday, November 16, Brevard County Commission meeting. Do I have Pastor Hatcher here? Pastor Hatcher? Okay, well, we are going to go ahead and call this meeting to order. Commissioner Tobias, do I have you on the phone, sir?
Yes, Madam Chair, you do.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
just in anticipation of his calling in, I'd like to make a motion to permit him to participate electronically.
Yes, sir. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 4-0. And do we know where Commissioner Tobias is? I'm sorry. Everybody's so quiet. Oh, yay, there you are.
I'm here, thank you.
Good morning, sir. Good to have you along. Commissioner Smith, will you lead us in the pledge, sir?
Well, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioners, we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. Can I get a motion?
You got it.
Motion by Commissioner Lober. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Zonka. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 5-0. We're moving into selection of chair and vice chair.
Before we get started, I would just like to take a moment and thank Commissioner Pritchett for doing an amazing job, as always. And sorry if it hurts anybody's feelings, but you are my favorite chair, and you know this because you've
I
run
like
a
the
meeting
girls.
like
Thank
no
you.
other. So I want to just thank you, and I'm sure I speak on behalf of the board for
Thank
a
you.
wonderful year of service. I don't think people quite realize how much time and effort goes into being chair. So thank you, Ms. Pritchett, for
Thank you.
the professionalism and for the kindness and the patience you take that deals with all of us. All right.
Thank you,
Back
Bam.
for you.
Oh, how nice. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, guys. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. Thank you so much. Okay, so I would like to go ahead and receive a motion to select our new chair.
I'll make a motion to put up Commissioner Zonka as chair.
Wonderful.
Second.
Motion for Commissioner Zonka, second by Commissioner Smith. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, passes 5-0, and I'm going to turn this right over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. She couldn't wait.
Not wasting any time.
That seat's not even warm yet.
I know, right?
You know, you're wonderful, though, so.
I just want to thank the board for your support, and I promise I'll do my very best to run, probably not nearly as awesome as Commissioner Pritchett, but I'll do my best
You're
to
wonderful.
keep us in order. All right, so we'll move on for nominations for a vice chair.
You want to do it, Kurt?
No, you be my guest.
I'm not going to nominate myself.
Commissioner Pritchett?
I was going to make a motion for Commissioner Smith since it's his term out, so.
Okay, I'll second.
Will you do it?
You want to do it?
Commissioner-
You want to be
Yeah, I'll
vice
do
chair?
All right.
Commissioner Tobias, are you there?
Okay, I have a motion for Commissioner Smith as vice chair.
I'm sorry.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Congratulations. It's Kurt's last year here, so thank you for agreeing to do this. And I think it's, for your years of service, I think it's quite an honor for us to serve with you, so thank you. All right, so we're moving into resolutions, awards, and presentation. Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Tom, Lori, want to come front and center? Good to see you folks this morning.
It's a good-looking crew.
Yes, it is. They do a lot for this county. All right, I'm going to read this, and then you guys have the floor. Whereas, Florida farmers and ranchers help feed the world by producing a bounty of nutritious foods. To do this, they rely on essential partnerships with urban and rural communities to supply, sell, and deliver finished products to consumers across Florida and around the globe. And whereas rural and urban communities working together have built our nation's rich agricultural resources so that they contribute to the health and well-being of our country and the strength of our economy. And whereas during National Farm City Week, we recognize the importance of this cooperative network Agriculture and related enterprise employ more than 2 million workers, including farmers and ranchers, shippers, processors, marketers, retailers, inspectors, and others who contribute an annual impact of $146 billion with a B to Florida's economy. And whereas they perform their daily work, farmers and ranchers preserve freshwater recharge areas, wildlife habitat, and green space. Consumers help farm families maintain their superior natural resource conservation practices by purchasing Florida's agricultural products. And whereas we commend the many Floridians whose hard work and ingenuity provide us with food, abundance, and reflect the true spirit of our state and nation. Now therefore be it resolved that the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida does hereby proclaim November 17th through 24th, 2021 as Farm City Week, and call upon all citizens to acknowledge and celebrate the achievements of all those who, working together, produce and supply our community, our nation, and the world with an abundance of agricultural products. Done, ordered, and adopted in regular session this 16th day of November 2021. Madam Chair, I would like to recommend an approval for this motion.
I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Floor is yours.
That might be a mistake. I want to thank you guys for recognizing us. You know, agriculture does a phenomenal job, as you can tell by the numbers of producing food and fiber, especially in the state of Florida. Those, numerical numbers are huge. I think right now we're the number 2 industry in the state behind construction right now. So, but with that being said, the legislature last year, and we do a great job at growing this, we do a horrible job at promoting ourselves. So it's nice to be able to come to these meetings to get our message out. The legislature did a phenomenal job last year at strengthening the right to farm bill, which is going to help protect this industry in Florida, which is vitally important. If we can't grow it here in Florida or in America, then we're going to have to rely on foreign countries, and that's huge. So thank you guys for doing your part for recognizing it. If you have any questions or anything arises that's going to affect the ag community, please work with our partners at the Extension Office. They're kind of our go-to folks for when you can't get hold of us, get hold of Beth Shepard, our Extension Director, and let her know, hey, we got something coming up that might be affecting the ag community, and let's talk about it. So we look forward to working with everybody and appreciate this award.
Thank you so much.
Anybody else want to say anything?
We're good.
Everybody's shy.
Let me just remind y'all that we're doing wonderful things in Brevard County right now, but 200 years ago, the first industry in Brevard County was agriculture.
Yeah, and I want to give a shout out to the Extension Service because they do a lot of good stuff too.
Thank
As
you.
obviously you guys do, and they don't get the credit, you guys don't get the credit. People don't realize what an effect you have on the citizens of this state. They just take it for granted. They can go to Publix and there's always going to be food there. So kudos to you guys.
You mean it doesn't just spontaneously appear on the shelves?
I don't think so.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. We only have one item on there.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion by Commissioner Lober. Second by Commissioner Pritchett. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. I have no public comment cards, and we don't have any public hearings. So we're going to go ahead and move to board reports. Mr. Abate?
No report?
Ms. Jornby?
No report.
Commissioner Pritchett?
No report.
Commissioner Lober?
I do have a report. That I'm sorry to bring up a negative or unfortunate subject during an otherwise great meeting, but I think we've got to address something that frankly can't wait. I don't like making motions during board reports, but I think this is one where, based on some information I received yesterday, it's probably appropriate. So as y'all are likely aware, we recently had an incident, or an alleged incident, involving a BCFR first responder that entailed what appears to be inappropriate behavior. I'll phrase it that way. Yesterday, I was made aware of a second incident involving a different BCFR staff member or first responder, which leaves me very disappointed. There were a number of differences between the two incidents. However, there was a glaring similarity. Among the differences was that one of them occurred while the employee in question was off duty, whereas the other one, the more recent one, occurred when the employee was on duty, and in fact, there were other differences. I think one of them, there certainly appears to have been an intent to offend. The other, I can't say that necessarily to a certainty. On its face, it certainly appears pretty clear that the second this recent comment was done specifically to get a reaction and to be offensive. And that the comment that was made was repeated, so it wasn't something that was a mistake, it wasn't something that was a slip or something that was unintentional, not that that would excuse it anyway. But I think when you intentionally make a comment that's extremely offensive to essentially anyone, it's an issue. The thing that makes it worse, though, the second incident that's more recent occurred during a time when the employee in question was not only responding to a call for service, but he was actually interacting with a member of the public who required emergency medical treatment. Probably among the worst possible times to do something that's patently inappropriate. At the same time, the comment that was made denigrated first responders of a responding law enforcement agency solely on account of ethnicity. Not okay. Not okay. I don't care if you're a Republican, a Democrat, what your political beliefs are. It's not okay anywhere, ever. Not funny. The comments, aside from being beyond ignorant, in my opinion, can't go unanswered. I think there has to be a use of our due process system to make sure that they get addressed. I'm not going to go over all of the other differences, even though there are some. I think this would just drag on too long if I did that. I do want to focus on some similarities, though. I think the similarity between the first issue that I'm sure everyone here is aware of and the second issue, which I think only came to light, at least for me yesterday, is that both of the incidents involved what I think most folks would term bigoted and racist behavior, not folks that are hypersensitive or folks that are social justice warriors, but really anyone. While the BCFR employees that are involved in these incidents weren't the same ethnicity, no ethnicity has a free pass to disparage folks that belong to another ethnicity or perhaps even their own ethnicity. So absent or unless what I have heard from staff and from admin regarding both of these incidents, unless it's just completely incorrect, the second similarity between these incidents that's at least worth mentioning is that they both involved incredibly poor judgment. Judgment that causes me to question really whether they're making the right calls on the job. If an employee has personal beliefs or ideology that I disagree with, that's fine. But if that belief or those beliefs or that ideology is so extreme that it cannot but interfere with a profession that requires interacting with members of the public and working with other first responders, either from the same agency or from other agencies, that's a problem, something that has to be addressed. And while I find the conduct, in fact, both from what I understand to be inappropriate and incompatible with our organization's values, I do and I have to respect the due process rights that our first responders have here. It's not a guilty until proven innocent, but I think it's important that we get the ball rolling to go through that process so that everyone can present their appropriate side, if there is one, as to what happened. I don't believe that the board or administration did anything to cause either of these issues. However, I don't think it's sufficient that we as an entity or that admin simply didn't cause them. I think we have, now that we have a second issue in fewer than as many months, we have to take some steps to avoid something like this occurring in the future. We need to have our expectations more clearly laid out to staff members. And I think our first responders should know not only what they are expected to do, but as evidenced by these couple happenings, what we expect them not to do, just as importantly. And as a result, I would suggest that all paid first responders who work for BCFR, that they ought to be required to take an annual training in appropriate workplace behavior and also on our organizational culture. If the individual isn't able to take the training on its scheduled date, whether it's due to illness, whether it's due to a manpower requirement for our first responders, or any other legitimate reason, that individual should have to watch a full recording of the training within 30 days of that training taking place. And I think if they don't show up, that there should be at least some short test or quiz to confirm that they were not only conscious during the time that they were playing the training, but they actually understood what was contained in the training. And I'm not trying to turn our staff by any means, I can give you my word, into hypersensitive people or into social justice warriors, but rather I'm trying to ensure that our staff members don't rightfully get criticized by folks on both sides of the aisle for having done things that are just patently unacceptable to 99.99% of the population. Anyone that wears a Brevard County uniform needs to conduct themselves in a certain manner, especially when they're interacting with members of the public or with their partner agencies. So again, I'm not talking about training our employees to walk on eggshells. I'm talking about training them to avoid showing up at a superior's party allegedly in blackface the same day that they call in too sick to work. I'm talking about training to avoid a paramedic or a fire medic telling a gunshot patient on his way to the hospital that the police elected to shoot him in a particular location on his body because of his ethnicity. Neither of those on any planet are acceptable. So again, we're not talking about sensitivity training, which I don't want. I'm talking about appropriate workplace behavior training. Both of those examples, which are not hypotheticals, are profoundly troubling to me. Our first responders, as I suggested before, are free to believe whatever they want to believe. However, when they take actions that reflect exceptionally bigoted beliefs, they need to be mindful that those actions may and likely will reflect on the county and reflect on it in a horribly negative way. And that especially applies when we're dealing with settings where folks are interacting with partner agencies or, as I mentioned, members of the public. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion. I move that we direct staff to draft proposed parameters for such an annual training and that these parameters be brought back to this board within a month's time. And my motion specifically contemplates that staff will take steps and implement safeguards to avoid the politicization, pardon me, it's early in the morning, of this training, as the goal is simply limiting poor choices within the profession, which unnecessarily bring into the forefront any individual's membership in a protected class, whether it be race, religion, national origin, age, gender, or any other legally recognized protected class. An individual's opinions, whether they be expressed verbally, in writing, or through action, and whether they be positive or negative stereotypes, regarding any such group should be left out of the workplace unless there is some genuine need to address them. If someone's gender affects their treatment, then perhaps it's appropriate to address it in that limited circumstance, but otherwise it simply should be irrelevant. So I'm not seeking to change anyone's beliefs, even if I find them reprehensible and even if I find them moronic. I'm seeking to keep their beliefs from impacting their work with the county, or just as importantly, impacting the trust that our citizens should have when they're treated by our paramedics and by our EMTs, that they're going to be treated the same regardless of their immutable characteristics. So that's my motion. I'm hoping someone seconds it and we can start moving to keep these things from happening in the future.
And
Madam
before,
Chair?
oh, go ahead, Commissioner Tobias.
Sorry, I apologize. A little bit difficult. Two quick questions. One, what will the impact of this training be on the collective bargaining agreement? And two, what would the cost be for not only the training program, but the many hours that would go into taking the classes instead of doing their regular services? But I would need that information before I made a definitive decision one way or another. And I understand it's pretty unfair on staff to ask them those questions in this setting, but short of those, I can't vote in the affirmative. Thanks, Madam Chair.
Mr. Bate, before you speak, if that's okay, And I would just caution this board, and I typically don't speak until the end, but I don't see any commissioners' lights on, so I'm just going to say this. I think we have due processes in place. I believe that our staff, obviously by them calling us, obviously have some concerns about the allegations, but I think we have to be careful. We do follow due process because employees do have rights too. And whether what appears to be what it is and what we know to be facts, I think by bringing this issue to this board today is sort of politicizing the issue, and I have grave concern for that. I'm not opposed to extra training if we need sensitivity training, but I think we need to just be cautious here what we say publicly before our staff has had a chance to do a thorough and complete and fair investigation. And I know we have training, we have, sensitivity training as part of our HR process already. But, until we know the outcome of the investigation, maybe everybody needs training, I don't know. But until we know the outcome of the investigation, I just want to caution that moving forward, that we don't overreact before we know exactly the facts and what we've done. Commissioner, yeah, I just promoted you to Commissioner, Mr. Abate. Mr. Abate?
Okay, thank you. I do want to address a couple of issues. First, to make it clear and emphasize to everyone, the board has a policy on discriminatory harassment. Any unwelcome verbal or physical conduct that relates to race, color, gender, religion, national origin, disability, veteran status, any of those things that has the purpose or the effect of unreasonably interfering with or creates an offensive environment or hostile environment is prohibited under board policy. And that particular policy, which is BCC 04, every employee is mandated to go through that particular training, which is done by Human Resources. I will tell you that Human Resources also was involved in training all supervision on discriminatory harassment just within the last several months. That was a mandatory training for all staff throughout the organization. When any incident occurs that is inconsistent with the board's policy in this area, disciplinary action is contemplated, looked at, and taken as appropriate. Dealing with the fire service, there's something called the Firefighter Bill of Rights, which is statutorily mandated, which requires very specific acts and how it is handled, like both commissioners, or all three of you were speaking to the issue of certain due process and statutory requirements which we're obligated to follow. We clearly are in the process of doing that. And I can assure the board that as soon as these matters were brought to leadership's attention, that process immediately began in both cases and is currently underway in accordance with the statutory obligations that we have to respect the rights of those that are facing potential action. Having said that, there's also a variety of other training dealing with emotional intelligence, empathy, et cetera, that's done in a variety of forms in leadership. That's not to say that any amount of training is never enough, and we can certainly augment and do more than what's been done. And I think that's what's being contemplated or being asked for. And I can assure you that I've already had discussions with both Mr. Wallace and Chief Schollmeyer about that, and making sure that we do everything that we reasonably can and should be doing in those areas. So I just wanted to get that out there, that we are trying our best to stay on top of these things and address them appropriately. And I'll let them address the issue of Commissioner Tobias' question.
So there are a couple routes that we can do the training. One would have some significant fiscal impact, and one would have very minimal impact. So much like when we buy a new piece of equipment or change our protocols, we have training rotations that come into our building, and we'll bring in 2 or 3 units at one time. It takes about 3 or 4 weeks to do that training, but it's all on duty, minimal impact to service delivery, and minimal cost, just instructor-wise. The other way we could do it is we could bring everybody in off duty to ensure that they receive the training. That obviously has overtime impacts and fiscal impacts, but we could certainly do anything either online or in person. It all depends on how county manager and the public safety director, wish to do.
And good morning, Madam Chair. Also add, we have about 450 or so field personnel that overcome the 3 shifts. So when we talk magnitude of training, that's kind of the magnitude that we're talking. It will be a significant effort on our part to make sure that we reach out and touch all the folks that are in the field. We do have an in-house capability in public safety for training that we could develop this with, so we could use that Brevard County staff person to develop the training in coordination with HR and execute the training in the field. But when you're talking 450 folks, again, over 3 shifts, the logistics of that, making sure that we get everybody, it's going to take a little bit of time to get to that. Obviously, we have technology that we can use, from CB, computer-based training type of things, video types of training. So as we contemplate what the board directs us to do, given the parameters of how you want us to execute this, we can develop those programs. To answer Commissioner Tobias' question on impact bargaining from the union, I'd probably let that over to my expert, Mr. Visco, who's our HR director, on the impact with the union contract.
We don't anticipate any impact from the collective bargaining perspective. This is ongoing training. This is just another element of training programs that are already in place. So I don't anticipate there will be a problem, but we can address that with union leadership at some point and see if they have any questions or concerns, we can address it at that time. Commissioner
Lober?
Just a couple thoughts. First, and I don't want to assume, because frankly, that's not a good thing to do. Mr. Abate, the training that you spoke of, is that a training that occurs once upon hire? Is that something that occurs every year? Because I'm just curious, if someone's sort of gotten into a groove and they've been here 10 or 15 years, I'm wondering if it's something they've seen in the past X amount of time.
There's a mandatory training that happens, or there's a variety of courses when somebody first comes on board. However, there are a variety of different trainings that occur. Some are given annually. The mandatory training that I was talking about, discriminatory harassment,
yes, sir,
is a one-time that occurs at the beginning of employment. There are various other trainings. For example, I mentioned that this year we did discriminatory harassment training for all supervisors throughout the organization. That was mandatory. That was done here. There were 3 separate sessions. That was done by HR. So that was similar in nature to the discriminatory harassment, but that was focused on leadership and supervision throughout the organization. What I was mentioning and what I was talking to them about was what we could do to augment. I believe on November 11th, the public safety director was already reaching out. We have a good relationship and partnership with Daomi, which is at Patrick, which does defense equal opportunity training. So we've been reaching out to them to look at developing additional training opportunities for frontline first responders included, that we could augment the different kinds of training we already have in place. I mentioned emotional intelligence. That's an optional training program that any employee can register for, or supervision can register them for. So we have those kind of trainings out there now. There is nothing of that kind of training that is every year, as you were mentioning, Commissioner.
Well, I guess part of my concern, and I don't want to take away from the due process rights that exist or the process that's in place. I think that's a good system overall. Is it perfect? Perhaps not. But my concern and my reason for bringing this up isn't to try to make anyone look bad in public. It's to avoid this happening in the future. And once it gets to the due process rights, we're no longer being proactive. At that point, we're being reactive, which isn't the purpose of the motion. The purpose of the motion isn't to do anything differently on the back end. It's to do it differently on the front end, so that, God willing, there won't be an incident, and God willing, there won't be an incident that causes a back end to come up. Just for Commissioner Tobias' sake, though, because I know he asked the couple questions he did, I'm trying to leave it open-ended as to whether it's something done with in-house training or outside training. If staff's confident they can handle it in-house, wonderful. Let's not spend any more money than we have to if we can accomplish the same result. Whether it deals with on-duty or off-duty, if the financial impact is tremendously different, if it's cheaper to do on-duty, I'm fine with that. My goal is to avoid these situations occurring, not to mandate that staff train them in a particular fashion. The only concern I have with respect to the content is that we not turn this into something where we're politicizing it and telling people that they have to be overly sensitive to the point of being hypersensitive. So that's kind of where I am. Again, I think the term sensitivity training is not what I'm going for, because I think that has the connotation of making people hypersensitive or pushing them into a particular political spectrum. I'm simply trying to avoid people showing up in blackface or telling people that they're getting shot in particular locations because of their ethnicity. I think vast majority of people that are our constituents would agree that, irrespective of how they're registered based on partisan political ideology, it's just not acceptable.
And Commissioner Pritchett, if you'll just humor me for a moment. I mean, I've been on this board a few years now. I mean, have we had any incidents, I'm careful with my wording because, again, I think we have to do the proper thing, and due process is absolutely imperative. Have we had any incidents that involved any racial issues in the past?
These two recent
Yes.
are, I don't remember any.
And how long have you been, in a leadership position?
Almost 33 years. For the past 15 years in a leadership position.
And working for the department?
33 years.
And how many incidents?
These two, the ones that come to my mind. I
Okay.
mean, just recently.
And again,
happened.
I'll caution, I think, we need to assess the situation after we see what those needs are, because these are two completely unrelated incidents. And quite honestly, even just on the surface, look completely differing as far as what they are. They may have both involved ethnicity, but at the same time, I think they're completely different meanings, I guess, for lack of a better term. But again, I think we're treading a fine line here because we've already essentially convicted the employees and acted like we know what's happened, and we weren't there. We weren't part of it. And I just want to caution the board again, before we jump the gun, and because we want to react quickly, I think we need to see what those needs are after we do a full investigation and due process, and see if we do have some lacking areas. Maybe we need some additional training, but I don't want to react to the behavior or the incidents of two employees. I think that's, we have a lot of people that work here, and 33 years and two incidents is very telling. So, Commissioner Pritchett?
Thank you, ma'am. I'm going to start with the last thing that I'm going to mention, that I will support today with the county manager coming back with an overview and recommendations of what he's doing. Buck stops with you really on this, and then you let us know. I think the environment we're in these days, it's a little, it's hostile out there. So I think we do have to take steps to make sure that we are professional as Brevard County. And you know this, sir. You are the right man for this job. I do believe that we do have good policy in place. I think just everybody might need to be reminded from time to time. I don't know if that means training at the college. We have to sit through little slideshows on sexual harassment, discrimination, cybersecurity. So maybe just something like that, and everybody sign off that they reviewed it. And then we're all responsible for ourselves. If you can't comply with the policy of Brevard County, you probably should, maybe look at another position. But, sir, I'm going to support, you being able to do your job, and then you just letting us know what the recommendations are and what we need to do different, sir.
Is that an old light, Frank? Is that an old light?
Yes, that was an old light, thank you.
Okay, Smith, Commissioner Smith?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, when I heard about these incidents, they were quite concerning, and you bring up some very good points, but I don't think that we should be jumping to conclusions and making knee-jerk reactions. You made a good point that these are two incidents that are back-to-back, and it's unfortunate, but over the lifespan of 20, 30 years, if those are the only two, we have to take that into perspective. We've all said things, we've all done things that we wish we hadn't, and wish that probably we could undo, but you can't. So do we paint somebody as a bad person forever because they made one mistake? And I'm sure that's included in our policies. I hope we don't. It's despicable what happened, but I would hope that the person that made these comments would be grieving at this point because they were despicable. I don't know the person, but I think forgiveness has to be considered as well. I agree with what's already been said. I think staff can look at this, look at the big picture. They know the persons and the people involved. They can come back to us with their recommendations, and then we can act accordingly. But yeah, I think we have to do something, if only just look at these things. But I don't think a knee-jerk reaction is the way to go.
Commissioner Tobias, do you have anything more to add? I know you can't put a light on.
Thank you, Madam. My thought is, according to the charter, this is really a management decision. And if the county manager decides he wants to bring this back and give us an update, I support that, but I certainly don't support at this juncture making a motion. I think we're undermining the authority. I think we're undermining the charter when we tell Frank to make a management decision. So I think he's done a great job. I think it was outside of control. I don't know that board training would have stopped these incidences from taking place. So in deference to not only the county manager, the job he's done, but also the charter, I don't think I can make a affirmative vote to mandate the county manager to come back with any type of additional training. If he thinks that that's the right direction, I would support him. If he thinks that we're in a good place right now, I would support him on that decision.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobias. Okay, Commissioner Lober, you want to wrap it up?
Yeah,
Because you kind of know where the board's sitting right now.
Sure, and just a few thoughts based on what I've heard over the past couple minutes here. First, there are two ways to look at someone having been here 33 years and having had, I don't want to say only 2 racial incidents, because 2 is too many, but the fact is I'd not heard of any either up till the recent past here, but to have 2 incidents in the span of closer to 2 weeks than 2 months leads me to believe it's a problem. If we went 1,000 years without 2 incidents and then we had 2 that were basically back to back, I would be very concerned that something has changed or that the environment has changed and that we need to do things differently. As far as this being a knee-jerk reaction, I'm not saying that we should put anything in place today. I'm not making a motion that we should put anything in place today. The motion was to ask staff to draft recommendations to us. If that involves options, it involves options. So I don't see it either usurping management authority, because we're asking management to tell us what they think is appropriate. I've not suggested a minimum time for training. I've not suggested, a particular syllabus for training, anything of that sort. And I think there's still maybe lingering confusion, at least among 1 or 2 of the folks up here, that this is this is being contemplated as a way of resolving the 2 issues that took place. This has nothing to do with reactively addressing that. It's simply proactive and trying to prevent it in the future. I'm not looking at making someone into a good person, a bad person, or a neutral person that may have had any level of involvement with either of the 2 incidents. They're going to go through the due process procedures that we have in place. I've already said that I think we have a pretty good due process system there, so I'm not looking to knock that, but I don't think it's inappropriate for this board, based on having had back-to-back racial incidents or alleged racial incidents, to say to staff, recognizing that these have allegedly taken place, whereas we've not even had the allegation over the past several decades, are there particular recommendations that you can make to us that deal with training on an annual basis? And if the recommendation is it doesn't need to be annual, it should be every 18 months, or it should be every 9 months, or some other number, that's perhaps reasonable as well, depending on why those recommendations were formulated. But asking management to bring those recommendations to this board, I don't see as being something that usurps their authority, based on the fact that they're the ones that are formulating those recommendations.
Okay, Commissioner Lober, I think we got your point. I believe if we allow the county manager to do his job, and you believe there to be recommendations at the end of the investigation and due process, you would bring those to the board, correct?
We would actually move forward with the training, which, as I was trying to say, we are in the process of already looking at additional training and what we should do. And I think that.
And you don't need direction from this board or a motion from this board to do your job, correct?
Well, that would be up to the board, but obviously, I believe, training, we've done a lot of training in this organization. I'm extremely proud of the training we've done over the years, the type of employee development training, the kind of mandatory training we do, and there's always opportunities to do more, and we are in the process of looking at that. And so I feel very comfortable that we will do the right thing in that area.
Okay. Well, there is no question because there's no motion. So I will just end the conversation because I think we've kind of, yeah.
Okay, well, I'm still haven't finished my board report, though.
Okay, do you have a new item? Because I'd like to move on from this one, if
Yeah, we
possible.
can move on. I mean,
Okay.
just the last item I'll say is it's interesting, it's a knee-jerk when it comes from me, but if staff wants to do it, it's no longer a knee-jerk. It almost seems like the individual that's introducing the suggestion is causing the result or impacting the result.
I guess that's your opinion, but.
It
I mean,
is,
Okay, so are you done your report?
yes.
Okay. Commissioner Tobias?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate your forgiveness about me not showing up. I want to say that our words have impact. Commissioner Smith pointed out last meeting about No Shave November, and he caught me off guard, and I hadn't shaved, so I'm sorry I'm there to miss our assistant county managers, and I'm sure Commissioner Smith continuing that. Though I'm not there on camera, and that's probably a good thing, I still haven't done that, and I greatly appreciate all his work to bring to light the important issues involved with the scourge of cancer. So thank you for doing that. I will continue even though I'm not there. And again, thank you for allowing me to participate remotely.
Thank you, Commissioner Tobias. Commissioner Smith?
No report. Oh, yes. I'll just make a comment that Rita and I are headed to Washington, D.C. today to represent the county, and we're going to be meeting with a whole bunch of large companies that have a presence here and some companies that we would like to have a presence here. So wish us Godspeed.
Thank you both for doing that. And I just want to say that, I want to thank the board for your support. As chair, I'll do my best to keep meetings on topic, and your time is as important as ours, so more important than ours, actually. So I may bring some things back to the board, and I just wanted to let the board know to help move things along a little more efficiently. And I may shuffle some people around up here and move some staff just to kind of make it a little bit easier of a process for everybody. So I just wanted to give you guys a heads up. And if you could just get me your list of the boards you'd like to be a part of, and I'll do my best to make sure everybody at least gets their priorities straight. Commissioner Lober?
Yeah, just on that, I do have a request to be on one and a request not to be on one that I'd like just to run by folks because they're of particular importance to me. On TDC, I really would prefer to be off TDC for the next year, so I don't know if Commissioner Pritchett or Commissioner Zonka, if you want to serve on that, but I'd prefer to be off that.
You could just let us know when you do the spreadsheet of which boards you'd like and which boards. And
Okay, so I can do both what I want and also what I prefer to
yeah,
be
you
off of?
could. You could just,
Okay.
or just write on the form, I do not want to be on this board. And
Okay,
I'll
I
do my
appreciate
best
it.
to accommodate for sure.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And with that, if there's no other business, I'll call this meeting adjourned.
The opinions expressed by any member of the public during any period of public comment do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, or the program sponsor, and are solely those of the presenter. The Board of County Commissioners of Brevard County, Florida, Space Coast Government Television, and the program sponsor hereby expressly disclaim any and all responsibility or liability for any defamatory or slanderous statements expressed by any member of the public during any such period.